sense of soul.
Hey Soul Seekers, it's Shanna. Journey with me to discover how people around the world awaken to their true sense of soul. Now go grab your coffee. Open your mind, heart, and soul.
It's time to awaken.
Make sure you check out my last episode with David Holst. He's the founder of SomaEnergetics. He suggested that I have on today's guest, Chyla Walsh and Coby Cranman. They are partners in love, life, and sacred service. As stewards of the Soma Energetics, a vibrational healing company rooted in sound and frequency, they are devoted to awakening consciousness and elevating the collective vibration. Chyla is a mother, a yoga teacher, and the founder of Female Rebels, guiding women into deeper purpose through embodiment and sacred practice. Coby is a lifelong musician and visionary entrepreneur, weaving the healing power of sound into everything he creates. And together, they hold space for a vibrant community of soul-led beings, offering tools, frequencies, and remembrance for this great awakening. And they're here today to enlighten all of us. Excited because I had on David Holst, and we end up talking a little bit about frequency and vibration, and he mentioned the two of you, and you guys will really love this. See, I just had on Sigmar, and he created the Love Tutor, a tool that goes around your neck. You wear it and you take it out, and you can tune with it.
That's awesome.
But I love that these things are becoming more widely spoke of. Now you can just wear it around your neck. Just recently, I'll show you. I got a didgeridoo.
Oh,
You know why I love it? Because it reacts with my body, right? That somatic energy. When I'm playing it, I could feel it vibrate throughout my body.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's on Gaia, I was watching one of the things, Sound of Creation or something, and how the didgeridoo, so it entrains kind of the frequencies, creates something new. But first of all, it harmonizes or creates coherence through the nervous system and all the cells when we play a single frequency. So that's one of the things that's happening, is that we're not disharmonized anymore. Like my left brain's stressed about, the bills, and my right brain wants to be creative, and I'm stressed because I'm running, through the house, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And so all of that just for a second quiets and gets harmonized into coherence. And so now you can start something new, a new idea, a new energy, a new feeling. And if you do that with a didgeridoo with a bunch of people, now the whole community is in coherence. And so the Aborigines will play that, and they'll all get in coherence with the didgeridoo playing that single note and all the harmonics that are in it too. And then this is our 528. So we call this our love tuner. So, or tuning fork, it's very close. So that's, if you can see, it says 528 there. I don't know if you can see that. So that's the frequency of the love tuner. It's one of the solfeggio.
Let's talk about this solfeggio. I was sharing with David, and I discovered the story of King David. As a boy, he played the lyre. And, had he never played the lyre, he would have never been King David. I mean, this really was his in. And, he had older brothers that would have been more chosen appropriately, to go stay with King Saul. But it was because King Saul wanted someone who played the lyre. And when he would play it, it would summon these demons and these energies, these negative energies out of him. And so he made him live with him. And so I thought that was interesting. So I was like, what's up with the lyre? So I did some studying. It is the solfeggio frequencies.
Oh, I did not know that. That is really cool.
Right? The lyre goes all the way back to some of the most earliest gods in mythology. Like Mercury had one. And in the land of the king had a lyre. They knew that there was something special, very special, about these frequencies.
That's all amazing. I want to learn so much more about that. And maybe they had different tunings too. That's possible too, in different eras, because that instrument was around for thousands of years. It was also, I know, around Pythagoras' time, it was tuned similar to our tunings now, with 12-tone equal temperament, which means that's not to get too wordy with it, but when you play a piano, it's a octave, which is a double or a half of a vibration divided into 12 notes. But it's kind of compromised so that you can play in different keys. So it's not exact math. They kind of fudge the numbers a little bit. So it's close to perfectly harmonized math, but it's a few frequent hertz off here and there, which is okay. But when you go back in time to the Lyre days, they had it very specifically tuned to a particular scale. So you weren't moving around scales. And so the way the math worked, everything was in much more perfect harmony. It still can be cool. I'm a musician, so I love all the frequencies. Like I like when things are a little off sometimes because what's happening is it's creating binaural beats. So every time you have something a little out of tune, you have a new vibration that is in between there that's creating these binaural beats. And so your brain actually hears the two original notes and then it hears a third note, which is like a wobble sound. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Whatever the speed of that wobble is affects your brain. So your brain entrains to that wobbly note. And if you have multiple things out of tune, you can have really complex, like lots of binaural beats happening in a single song or a single chord even. But it's just that at a certain point, maybe it can become too much, it could just become too complex or too much noise. So that's kind of the push-pull of music, is trying to find that middle spot where we're talking to all the complexity happening with our life and our brain, but somehow maybe soothing it or harmonizing it too. So it's like kind of like this big conversation that can happen in one song with our nervous system.
It's amazing you already spoke with David. So, he is such a wealth of information, and his wisdom that he has researched and things like that. But I also really love his channel that he has, because he's so connected and he's able to really bring information through in a way that, for me personally, is so nice to digest. And so a lot of the learning that I have with solfeggio is through David. And in the SomaEnergetics phase 1 training, he goes into a lot of this. Everybody knows from Sound of Music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, right? It keeps going. But the solfeggio from a long time ago, and like you're saying with the lyre, so this is after that. So at somewhere they probably pulled from that information. So it's kind of, that would be an interesting cross point to look into, is the chants came into the Roman Catholic Church. It was actually ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and that's actually where our solfeggio, we do 6. And that was information that, David felt called to keep it to 6. And we just actually created an extension set so you can do 9 if you'd like, which is what people are more attuned to because of the chakras, right? And so they're connected to that. And if you look into, ut and what it was in Latin, and we have it on our site because this is all David, but each one has, information from the Latin translation. I know with the 528, the me fork has to do with transformation. So we do hear about it as love, but it's also the transformational solfeggio frequency. I'm very visual, so like the 528 for me is like butterfly energy. So that is transformation, definitely. But what transforms us is love. 100%. I mean, that is the core of what is going to help us transform. Obviously, love for ourselves, love for others, love from those who love us. I love that you're into the Gnostics, because there's wisdom that is beyond what we're really tapping into today that has been here. And I think that's very powerful. That's where the frequencies come from. They're not new, although a lot of people are newly hearing of them right now in this timeline and this lifetime, but they're ancient. And this wisdom is really kind of being brought back forward. So anyway, the solfeggio frequencies, I think of them, and Coby was kind of speaking to this, as David says, oftentimes people will find one of the frequencies, if not multiples of them, dissonant.
Mm.
So it's not like, ooh, I like this. And I think the
Yeah.
528 is very like, ooh, I like this. It feels really good, like butterfly. Like you're like, look at the butterfly.
I'm
And
visual too. I like that.
yeah. Okay,
Glad
good.
that you said
I'm
that.
like, I just see things. I'm like, okay, I'm going with it. So the 528, and you have the love tuner, so you know
Yeah.
that frequency, same thing. It's kind of like, this feels good. And so I often tell people it's a great starting point.
I was thinking about when you were talking about, I know that you do yoga, but I love to sometimes chant. That's my yoga is more kirtan yoga and the Ramadasa say sung.
So you're speaking my language. My lineage of yoga that I kind of came into, it's not what I trained in, but is Bhakti. And then in my Female Rebels, which is my other business, we do mantra as part of it. So we do the chanting and pull a lot from the Bhakti tradition and then also from Kundalini because I really love those mantras. So the Ramadasa Say So Hung, that is one that I know from Kundalini. And when we met, David and Tim, my connection point was definitely yoga, first and foremost, and frequency and chakras, but was the chanting. And I would speak to them about that a lot because what you are able to do with your own vocal cords, and Jonathan Goldman, he's amazing. He speaks about this a lot with toning and chanting. Your own voice is one of the most powerful healing mechanisms that you have. And just humming is healing. And there's studies about what humming does, releasing nitric oxide. Humming is so powerful for little babies, right? They love to hear the mom
Vagus nerve.
hum, the vagus nerve. Yes, exactly. And so we take it a little bit deeper and we go into these mantras, which are activating different parts of the chakra system and bringing energy usually up, right, into the upper chakras. And so we're allowing some of the more dense energy from childhood, from past life to move upward. And obviously, we're using our voice. So this already is in the upper chakras. You're vibrating a lot around your third eye. The crown is just, I mean, you can feel it. If you tap in when you're chanting, you're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm activating and this is why it feels so good. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to do too much, or I don't like, do I really need the crystals and the Palo Santo and the yoga? And I'm like, it compounds. It
Okay.
all builds on each other. And so when the forks came into my life, I was like, ooh, oh, this is like another access point, another way to layer and have like a new story and a new information. And then the other part of that, there are people that maybe are nervous to chant. Maybe they're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Maybe they don't have
Yep.
access to their voice. It might take them a little while to get used to it. And the thing with the tuning forks that's so cool is like, it is foolproof. Like you are
Yeah.
not going to do this wrong. You activate it, you get your sound, you get to work it in the field, and then just start to tap into your intuition. So, such a nice tool that someone doesn't have to get too lost in the monkey
Right.
mind. Am I doing it right? Did I say it right? Did it? It's
Yeah.
like, here's the frequency and it's not wrong. Like you've got it. Now just enjoy it and let it move
Yeah.
where it wants to go. So yes,
Okay,
totally.
so my neck literally was about to just break. I look like a rapper or something as you were talking because I am so much in agreement with you. I remember I took this shaman class, learning how to drum journey and all that good stuff. And there was a girl in our class that was allergic to herbs, like it's specifically like sage and stuff like that. And so we couldn't use anything like that. So what we used was sound. We
Mhm.
used, well, we specifically used a shaker, but in doing, I was curious about that. I was like, sound. I mean, and it was amazing. I've actually tried out with some of my clients before where I've shaked over them instead of like giving them like a protocol of Reiki or something, and their chakras opened, boom, like that. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And I'm going to tell you right now, I really do want your tuning forks because sometimes I'll take a bowl, not this one necessarily, because this is like a full moon bowl, but I have a smaller one that I'll use sometimes over clients. And I notice that when I'm using it, sometimes it'll stop over certain energy centers and then it'll keep going. And over time, over hundreds of people I'm working on, I realized that this sound was straight up letting me know just this was a tool that I could use. But I was always scared I was going to drop the freaking thing on my client, which some of these bowls are super heavy.
Yeah.
So I could see how that would be. I haven't done it yet, so thank God. But I love to use it, especially if I'm having an area that's a little stubborn, and so I'll test it with sound to tell me, like, are you open? Are you closed? Are you imbalanced? It works.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool you do all that.
Mhm.
We didn't know coming into the call that you're a practitioner too. This is I'll show you, this is kind of cool. This is, so it works as like a pendulum.
What? Oh,
So
okay. Stop. I want that. What is that?
so the
It
fork,
lets you not drop it on your client too, which is really a plus.
so you can read the sound, but also the pendulum motion through the chakras and anywhere we're
This is
working.
called the Soma swivel.
So cool. It's made by a great guy, but he and his family make these by hand. They invented them for Soma. He's a practitioner and he was like, this
Yeah.
is what we need. So these are, hand
Great.
at someone's coffee table here, in North Carolina. It's a community of just amazing people. That's one of the things that really surprises us every day is we wanted something new for our livelihood while we were working on existing businesses that we both have, and sold one that I started a long time ago. But while we were working, it was kind of like, speaking of butterflies again, we didn't want to crush the butterfly with some of the things that specifically Chyla's doing with her women's work. It just felt too precious to kind of like, okay, so we need a lot of revenue. Let's do sales first. It just didn't quite work. So we were looking and we found this business that looked like it's a commerce business. It's a tuning fork business. And it related to what we were each doing, but we had no idea the depth to which it related, and all the depth that it was just perfect for us. And it was a new art form for us to learn in our healing practices. And now we're learning from the community. So we just did a class on Sunday with Tony, and Tony is a master teacher with Soma for 15 years, and he's just a brilliant guy, channeling spirit all the time.
You would love him.
Yeah,
You would love.
cool.
Yeah.
So energetic. And so we were students in the class that we hosted 2 days ago, learning more about this art form and healing work.
You should show her this.
Oh yeah, I keep holding this. You show it off because
Oh,
this
it's a
is
tiny.
The tiny, I always say the little baby tuning fork. It's so cute.
Cute.
And also our 963 is really cute. It's another tiny, but not quite. But these are the angel tuners. And there's 3 of them in a set, but this one you can get by itself. But this is 4096 hertz. And this is clearing. This is a clearing tool. So to me, this has been so monumentally big in my yoga classes because it's great to have Palo Santo, and I really like Palo Santo myself. Sage lingers a little too much in terms of people coughing on it. Same thing with incense. I learned pretty quick, but even Palo Santo will make some of my students cough. And so I have to do it way before they come into the room, clear it out. So this is a crystal tuner and you activate it on a crystal. So this is a quartz crystal. It's beautiful. It's very high pitched. It literally is like angelic. And this is the 4096. So you can run it out before class. I'll clear myself and I'll run it through my field and I will hear if it stops. If the sound really quickly, you go again. Keep clearing and keep making room. I use it to clear my crystals, clear my card decks that I work with, the oracle cards and things like that. So I clear the tuning forks after I do a session with somebody or on myself. So anything that you want to reset, yourself, your tools, your space, this is
You should
such
probably
a
use it on me more often.
You were saying a bit ago how sometimes there's a dissonance. What do you feel about that? Because I mean, I've come to the point in my life that I kind of lean into uncomfortable places.
For myself, I'm like you. Okay, so I'm like lean in. I don't like this. Oh, let's see more why.
Yeah.
Let's go,
Right.
let's go behind the curtain. Uh,
Yes.
for clients, depending on where they are in their journey, if something doesn't feel good to them and they're like asking to not hear it, you have other options. And so I do think it's kind of interesting, like, okay, invite them to be okay with the dissonance. But then we have been learning a lot from our teachers. Again, like our community is just teaching us so much that there are some clients where that dissonance is not necessarily something you want to kind of like push the edge on. They don't have to go to a point of being uncomfortable. There's been a few people I know that if they're on the spectrum, Asperger's, specifically just one person I'm thinking of that did not like the frequencies. So my invitation with her was to work with the body tuners, which are behind me. I'm like, will you run and
Yeah,
get me
I will.
one?
Here's one too, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So
I saw a picture of you on your website where you actually were holding it up to your forehead, to your third eye.
yeah, that was the Ohm tuner.
They're weighted. So the weighted one, just real quick aside, and then I want to answer this question too.
Okay.
It's so good after you're done. But this is a weighted tuner. So the weighted tuner sends about 80% roughly of the energy through the stem into the body, or the energy that is the body. When they don't have the weight, about 80% of the sound comes out of the tines. So it broadcasts bigger into the space, the auric fields, the etheric field, the space, it also goes into the body. But if you're trying to get through the denser energy of the body, you use the one with the weights. They also tend to be lower frequency, which is what Chyla was about to talk about.
That might be intense for a lot of people. My son, who is on the spectrum, would not like that.
Yes, and see, so for people in that, you can clear your space before he comes into it, but the crystal tuner always being very mindful to not have it near the ear. So it's not like a close-up auditory experience. You can hear this from the front of the yoga room to the back. So I don't do this,
Yeah.
which is nice because a lot of the tuning forks don't deliver sound quite as far. They're more one-to-one or a couple people in a circle. But okay, so the solfeggios, I'm just speaking specifically to them. So this is the 528. And then the body tuner, which Coby was explaining has the weight, has been brought down 2 octaves. So it's still solfeggio, but it's 2 octaves lower. So this doesn't have like the love tuner, it doesn't have that beautiful higher sound that might not feel good to some people's auditory response. This is like, I would say it's like a bumblebee. It's like, so it's a hum.
It's a humming.
And you can work with it. You can place it and have it go on the body, but you can still work. So these are energy tuners. You're working in the energetic field. These are body tuners. You're working on the matter. Coby just explained this. You can still use the body tuner in the energetic field. So you don't have to place it on them if they don't want that. And they're
use it for both. Right.
yeah, and one of our teachers was saying also dogs are sometimes sensitive to
Oh,
sound.
they
So
are.
with the body tuners around them, the cats, they like the higher sound. The
Oh, I
horses like
bet.
the sound,
Right.
not the dogs, because their ears are
I can see that.
so
Those little royal kitty cats.
this is a new way
The
for
bird.
you can work with those clients and that you don't have to say, okay, well, there's nothing I can do for you. You can still work with the dissonance, but in a softer way that they're not going to be like, "Meh." And
Yeah.
because you don't want them to feel like that. That's not
Yeah.
healing for them to be tense.
Right. Right. And I know some people who hate binaural beats, right? They just
they can't do it. It gives them anxiety. And which I always say, it's not anxiety. Actually is just energy on your
Yeah.
chest. But it's funny when the dog, this little pup, she's got the highest bark ever. It sounds like one of those fake dog barks, but she makes the bowls in my room all sing. It's crazy. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it's like all of them at one time.
That's amazing. Maybe she
Yeah.
has like the perfect pitch.
I've never experienced that with my other dogs, but they've got that really deep woof, woof, woof. Hers is like I said, it's almost like a toy,
Yeah. Well, the animals, they know about the healing, they're not in their brain as much, I presume. Like a cat, the humming is healing. The cats heal themselves all the time with the humming. And so when you're sick, they come to comfort you, but they're actually putting the vibration on sick parts. There's all these stories about people, the cats coming to even the specific spot that's wounded, curling up right there and purring all night.
And dogs too, they know when you have an injury, they lay on it.
Yeah.
My little dog always knew when I was pregnant, like every time. It was so amazing.
So science is, again, catching up, and we have incomplete, I think, information from the science side about what's happening, but science is now seeing that when someone has a loving, healing energy, they're producing more photons that we can measure. Those biophotons are affecting the DNA, because the DNA is not like a chemical like we were taught in high school. It's actually an energy coil that's like an antenna, receptor, and transmitter. And based on those photons, the DNA actually, it restructures the photons, and the photons restructure, they're having a conversation. So one of the things that's cool about it, whether it's bowls or tuning forks or whatever it may be, just two people sitting in a room together, and one person giving that loving energy. That's why just sitting at someone's hospital bed is so healing, or their bedside. But going even further with that as an intention with healing, there's more of this stuff that we can now measure scientifically that's being transmitted to the person who's needing it. The instruments just allow a channel for that. So like Reiki, you just use your hands, but you have that sort of technique. The technique kind of gives us a grounding for the healing energy and a channel for it. And you can use tuning forks, you can use bowls, whatever, but it's a way for people to channel that healing energy that is simple. And it doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to have really sophisticated techniques, is my point. You can go as simple or as technical or as elaborate as you want in the healing, but it's just showing up is the main part.
Reminds me of and I don't know if you guys both can relate to this, but there's nothing like your mom's sandwich for some reason. Is that not true?
It's so true. Yeah. As soon as I got pregnant, all I wanted was my mom's food. It is so much love, and especially when they're making food for their kids.
Right. There's those photons, right? There's that.
Yeah, exactly. But did you want to go back to something about the dissonance? I know you
I'd love to. I so appreciate you going back to that. So, because as a musician, back to, I call myself a musician. It's an identity, label.
You are a musician.
But I'm obsessed with making music. Let's put it that way. And just a quick aside there as I'm on the way, the journey of that, I think it's important to mention, because depending on where people are in the music path, it took me a while to understand. It was a night I was playing live at the Kirkwood Ballers Club in Atlanta, Georgia, downtown. And Randy, who threw the event, he said, I got off stage, and I think I was already intuitively playing with like the energy, but until he said this, I never understood. I was in my 20s. He said, Coby, it's all vibration, man. And I think he just knew I needed to hear that. And it was like such a light bulb, like, wow, you're right. It's all vibration. He just really drove it home for me that I was just working with vibration. And then it was a few years after that, I was making a song one night that an experience came back to me as a baby, that I was actually cut here. I had a little cyst or something on my throat. And so it's before I remember it consciously, maybe a month or two old. It was something I was born with. I don't know what it was, but they cut my throat. They took something out of it. And I had this experience for the first time consciously as an adult. And it was as my son was a baby. It was like I was reliving my life through the raising of him. I was going back over it. And as I was playing the keyboard and I was singing, I felt my throat and I said, oh my gosh. I just, for the first time, I kind of remembered the surgery and remembered getting cut and all of that. It was as I was singing the song, I kind of like realized I was transmuting that energy of the wound, of the trauma, and I was changing it, kind of getting past it as I was playing the keyboard and singing. And I had been doing that since I was 11 years old playing music, but that was the first time I consciously realized that I was transforming my emotions, my being through music. And it took me a while to kind of like really bring that intention into all the music. I still forget sometimes what I'm doing. I get lost in the mind of it. That journey started then, and so now we're here, and Soma has been this way to just really deepen that idea that all you have is this tuning fork. Like I can't get fancy with trying to pretend like I can play lead lines on my keyboard really well or whatever, kind of ego or mind thing. That it's so simple that you're just left with your intention and the tone you're playing. I don't think of these tones as dissonant so much, but I have had the experience with the solfeggio. There's a couple intervals that are like, whoa, it's like it's almost like a big stretch. How like you can feel uncomfortable when you're stretching sometimes. It's like Kyla said, we don't hear these frequencies. They're not in our music now. There's just no reason why you would hear some of these. Some of them are really close to the A432 or A440 notes. They do line up close and they can create a close binaural beat with those. There's some charts that show you can search solfeggio frequencies as it relates to the for A432 or 440. And these notes can be dissonant, but they're still relatively pleasing to me anyway. They just sound like notes to me and they have harmonics in them. So even when you're playing lower tones, if you listen carefully, you'll hear higher harmonics. And sometimes what we think of as dissonance is really harmonically rich information. So a distorted guitar tone is actually, the more distorted it is, the more harmonically rich it is. So it's actually like a massive chord that's being played. And
Wow.
one distorted guitar note could be represented in some kind of sacred geometry. If it's visual, then
Okay, so is it like when you're trying to control these frequencies in music, generally, is like a controlled
oh
tone,
yeah, yes,
where with your frequencies, the solfeggio frequencies and these higher ones, these are not controlled. They are almost free, like nature.
yeah, yeah.
I
You
like to
can't
say,
necessarily control the sound of wind.
yeah, and I like the language pure tone. It's pure.
Okay.
So
Right.
pure. There's no other thing that it's becoming or melding into. Like when you're working with music, you can go from one note to the next note. It's kind of like
Right.
you're in the guitar, you're bending.
Yes, I get it.
Your tone, and David talks about it's vertical sound versus with the bowl, it's circular sound. So think about it kind of
Right.
like,
Okay. And Cody, what you were describing, those off tones that those distorted ones, those are more like that,
yeah.
is what you're saying.
Well, there's several things we're talking about all at once that they all relate. The so you have like pure tone is like a pure sine wave, like Kyla was saying, and
Okay.
so that would be like if I move my hand back and forth really slowly, that's like a 1 time per second. That'd be a 1 hertz pure sine wave. It's smooth versus like a pulse that has movement. So a speaker, I promise I'm going to
Ooh.
relate this back around somehow. Well, I shouldn't promise that. I think I'm going to relate this back to but a speaker is if it's playing a low tone, it's moving back and forth slowly, but all the higher stuff, it's also vibrating at every other thing you're hearing. So a speaker moving in and out of its magnet frame is doing all sorts of crazy energetic stuff. It's playing all those the small ones. So kind of like a pool of water. If you had big waves and then you throw a small rock in it, there's the little waves on top.
Yeah.
Well, one sound can be that way where it can be really smooth, or it
Yeah.
can have all the little frequencies on top of it. And as we have what we call a distorted sound, it has those more information on top of the fundamental notes. So it's much more
Yeah.
complex. So that's really harmonically rich, and it gets so dense and intense that people go, ah, that's dissonant.
Yeah. Not familiar.
Because it's
Yeah.
intense, and they want to reject it because of that intensity, or
Wow.
too much information. And that may be okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It might be that I don't want that level of complexity right now. Like I
Right.
don't always
Yes.
want to look in my closet and see all the stuff I need to organize in there, like the old family photos and the glow. That's too much for me right now. I want to be in my simple space. So it's more like what we need at different times, just like throughout the day. They say that food can be healing at one part of the day and it can be destructive at another. Like I don't want to drink coffee
Right.
right before I go to bed, personally, usually. Um, it's better for me in the morning, right? So sound is that way too. And sometimes
Wow.
people can get more used to that and they can open up to the density of it and the different frequencies that they're not used to, because it can be uncomfortable. It makes you feel things that you don't want to feel.
He's very sensitive to sound, and that's something that is really
Yeah.
beautiful because of his musician nature. He's been like this since he was a little kid. Our daughter
Yeah.
definitely inherited that. He didn't like to listen to music when he was really young, which is really rare. So sometimes he can't even tell me what he's thinking unless I pause my music. Like
Yeah.
he's like, could you please pause that? I can't
Right.
talk and hear that.
I'm in
So
this whole other world.
dissonance.
And one last thing on that dissonance thing. Okay. And I contemplate this all the time. Like usually the stuff I find I can't stand listening to, if I'm like just really having an adverse reaction to it, it's like the hyper tuned. And I'm not against auto tune. I'm not one of these like I hate auto tune, but it's just that when I don't like something, it tends to be that it's hyper tuned, where they're locking their voice into this rigid, the 12
Yeah.
tone scale, because the auto tune is going back to that 12 tone scale that we were talking about, where it's already kind of off. And so you're like forcing yourself to be in this kind of off tone scale.
Not
And
natural.
it's not natural, but it's like the most correct kind of music. It's like the way that they're doing the chords and the sound. And some of it I love, like I don't like his subject matter, but like The Weeknd is he's got such great melodies and his voice is and that's like, new pop music. I think it sounds amazing. I love the way it sounds. And then there'll be the next song and I go, why can I just not stand this? I just think it's interesting to note that sometimes the stuff that's most corrected, I find the most dissonant. A lot of bendiness and like old country music where they're twanging into the note. I find it so,
Yeah.
like it's like,
You
oh,
like that?
From the South too, there.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Where
are you guys familiar with Sean Johnson and the Wild Lotus Band?
Yes, love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sean's from Louisiana as well. He's from New Orleans.
Oh,
He
neat.
released his last album, Mystery, on my podcast like 2 years, 3 years, 3 years ago. Love him. But he sent me his album to listen to before he had released it. And I'm singing these songs and I felt very connected to some of them. But I remember him talking to him and saying, I have no idea what I was singing last night, but I just love it and I love to sing it and I want to listen to it over and over and over. And he said, sometimes when we don't know what we're singing, we're singing from using a different tongue, we can't reject it. Like it's what your body, your soul needs. It means maybe you are loved, God is love, whatever. But if you heard that, you may reject it because we're so in our heads all the time. So if you sing it from another tongue, it's just the vibration and how you're resonating with it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I have an album in tongues I'm working on, along with 10 other albums that I need to finish. But what I found there was the brain was making words that had several meanings at once, whereas our words are just they're confined to like a desk, right? What is this desk right now that we're doing this conversation on? It's something else. This is a whole like channel where we're talking and we have tuning forks on it and electronics and water. So the tongues allow us to get outside of the confines of our words. And then, so it's like the words between the words. And so the solfeggio, back to the solfeggio, that's the notes between the notes. But it's uncomfortable because you're in uncharted territory. So when someone's speaking in tongues to you, it would be very disconcerting, and I think there are people that are really brilliant that unfortunately in our society are on the streets because they have that mind that they might come up to you and be creating connections with their words, and you can either kind of try to be with them in it and not be scared, or you could say, wow, you're freaking me out, I gotta go. So when we're outside of the boxes, we can get freaked out. Music can scare us. We can just get scared as humans easily. We're skittish. And
Yeah, we fear the unknown, right? Anything we don't know or we can't explain, we fear it. You know, I'd been learning a little bit about the Hebrew alphabet, studying it, which I had no knowledge of prior. So my last name is Vavra. So it is Czechoslovakian. It's also Vav is the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And Ra, of course, sun god. And a lot of people actually add Ra to their names to connect with that Egyptian energy. And so I've been chanting my name for years now since they suggested that. And then I ended up finding out that it's also a Sanskrit word that means hidden. There's something almost hidden within these sacred sounds. There's something hidden there. There's like a meaning there. There's like how you can connect love, right, to 528. Like what are the other things that are connected to those other frequencies?
My connection with the solfeggio came from the chakras. And so that is how we work with them. And so when I think of the translation, and it is on our website, so the Latin translation, what that directly translates to, and then how that connects to the solfeggio frequencies, which is where I think a lot of other people are getting that information. But I think it's kind of been, as all information is, it's like one person kind of finds it and unlocks it, and then it's regurgitated and repurposed. And that's everything for the most part. Like everything's coming through, and then someone's repeating it in their own way. So when you see what the solfeggio frequencies relate to, that is where that information is coming from. So like the oot, which is the red fork, I think it's interesting too, oot, root, but this is like liberation. And so for me, how I remember it, and I think everyone has to find their own way of kind of like connecting the dots.
yeah.
The root chakra, safety, stability, home. And I think of the root chakra a lot working with fear. And so liberation, right? So, and fear, you could also have like the opposite of fear could be courage, the opposite of, but I like the sense that this is like liberation.
Can I just say that, you know what came up for me the minute you said liberation? It was just like this, and I don't know why, was Lilith.
Oh, yeah.
Lilith, she is a goddess. She's the first like female liberation, if you want to say, that was hidden. She's a dark mother.
Right.
And I think about that's so, and I also think of virgin.
Yeah.
As soon as she said liberation, that was my next thing, because the word virgin actually means like independent woman.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so weird how we, can resonate with different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Virgo energy, right? That's what the Virgin is, Virgo. And so a lot of
Yeah.
people, they think of perfectionists, right? Because we've regurgitated things sometimes to the point where that's all we remember. And it's like, but
Are
there's
you a
more.
Virgo?
I'm Virgo rising.
Me too. I'm
Oh,
a Virgo
nice.
rising.
I love it. I'm very grateful for my Virgo rising. I think it keeps me grounded for the most part. Yeah.
Okay, here's what I'm noticing in all of this, like so rich.
I know.
Like we've just talked about so many subjects, and I mean, I'm going back to the Hebrew letters in your name, and I was just talking to my cousin who just moved to Israel. And he's from Israel, but he moved back, and been a lifelong endeavor for him. And it's such an endeavor because he also has epilepsy, and so
Mm,
extra intense for him to make that courageous move to get there, and he's just loving it so much. I mean, I'm like, I'm ready to be there with him. He's like, everything's so inexpensive and the food is all fresh and there's no chemicals and it's just
wow.
amazing fresh food everywhere, and it's spiritual and family values, and the way the sun comes up and the birds, and it just sounds lovely. But he was telling me that there's all these, so like Avraham, who's the father of the Judeo-Christian Muslim traditions, who
Mhm.
was apparently a very powerful, but just a very significant person for humanity. So his name is actually I'm forgetting now what Golan just taught me, but he taught me that Ra was in it. So
Yeah, yeah.
Ra, and then
Hmm.
Ham is like mother, father, and then there's an anagram to it. So everything is anagrammed and goes back and forth. And then each letter,
Yeah,
got to
it's
listen to
so
your podcast with the
with the
rabbi
rabbi. Yeah.
the other day, and how you were talking about the each Hebrew letter, which so I'm mostly Jewish tradition and heritage, and some Native American too, or whatever we want to call it, the original people here, and Choctaw and Cherokee. So the connection there, that I too want to learn all the depth of each letter and
Yes.
all the meanings, but like Moshe.
Mm,
Hashem is the word is another
yeah.
word for God, and it's an anagram, and it's about listening. So because Moshe had trouble speaking, but he was a very good listener to God.
Mm,
So that aspect, there's just so much density. And then we are talking about that, and we're talking about how the meanings behind each fork and how different people relate to it. I relate to the sound. I
right.
don't hear words. I don't hear the meanings in that way. I just feel the frequencies, and like if I'm working on Kyla, um, I'm not doing tunings for others other than just my mom and Kyla so far, and the kids a little
Mm,
bit myself, but maybe one day. Um, but when I'm working with her, I'm just sort of like feeling her energy and like what she needs, and kind of moving things that don't have words or meanings to them. So I'm just not thinking
right.
about,
Yeah. Right.
but it's really cool that I just can't even remember it. Like, so it was cool hearing
Wow.
about
Yeah.
what before. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. When she talks about it, I say,
Well,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
we all receive differently, right? I always say that. I'm very visual. I wish I could just, hear messages and pass them on. It'd be so amazing. But we all receive differently. They really think that the first language was sound. Like in the word yod, hey, va, hey, right?
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons why I started to research Hebrew alphabet because I kept seeing the vav and hearing vav. And then you also think about how, and I've heard this in many, many cultures, when something was so sacred, they said you weren't allowed to speak it.
Mhm.
You weren't allowed to speak the name of God. And it was something so sacred, they didn't allow us little minions even to speak of it. Now we're at a time where we're reclaiming that as our right, as part of the divine, that it is like okay for us to be in that resonance.
You're making me think like it wasn't you can't you were forbidden, or you just actually can't do it. You can try,
Mm.
but maybe you would just explode into light if you tried to really sing the full name of God. You would just evaporate into it.
That's pretty amazing. That's definitely interesting thought. Yeah, I could totally drash with you guys, which is what I love to do with the rabbi. This is a very hard topic for like someone to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
And I think that what my goal is in my podcast and for my listeners is that we normalize these things, that we
Mhm.
talk about them in a way that, you know, your neighbor can understand.
Thank you for that. And thank you for having that intention. I brought that intention today too. I was like, it doesn't need to be complex because it can feel kind of dense. And then someone new coming to that information is like, wait, I'm trying to unpack this and it's too tight. So just little pieces,
Yeah.
little fragments, and hearing about it in a way that's like, oh, okay, I can digest that, or oh, okay, that resonates with me, or oh, like little tidbits. And that's what people are craving. And I do believe that there's a large, very, very large group of people right now that are craving to feel kind of like their invitation to step in. And that needs to come
Yeah.
from a place that they can relate to, even if they haven't done their yoga teacher training or they haven't been playing music since they were a child. Like there's people that they're craving it, they're wanting to just be a part of it, and so they're waiting for their invitation of something so simple and like this little tiny, like it's a little baby and it's digestible and I can do that and I want that, and I'm so grateful that you're doing it in that way. So thank you for having that intention on your podcast, because I'm sure that's being felt by everyone that's listening.
Yeah. I could feel that. Just finally got a chance to listen because I picked Monsi up in Philadelphia to your podcast, and I got that feeling too. I was like, wow, this is just so accessible, and finding the commonality in things. Like, yeah, I heard you talking with the rabbi again, how, the alphabet and the aleph bet, right? Like and you look in Hindu culture, Golan, my cousin in Israel, was saying that there's some idea that actually one of Abraham's sons or multiple actually kind of went that direction, and so it actually is a branch from another branch of the tree. Well, it obviously is. We're all branches of the same
Right.
tree,
Yeah.
but that specifically that we could even include the Hindu tradition as part of the fabric of the other traditions that we think of,
Yeah.
that it's not like a separate thing. It's actually just another
Right.
offshoot.
It all goes back to the sound. That I think is where we really come together and where we can relate to each other. That's why music is universal. It doesn't matter what language they're singing in, you can feel it. Laughter is universal. It's a sound that we all understand. Tears, crying is universal. It's sound. And yeah, I feel that like we're all kind of connected on those very simple sounds and vibrations.
How our system, our brain, everything is just mirrors the cosmos.
Yeah.
Above, so below, that it's all just a continuum. And to look at in the beginning, there was the sound or the word,
Vibrated
it
across
was a
the
vibration, so movement. So we're basically a particular vibration that creates our physical form, our spiritual form. Our voice is created by these vibrations. So
Yeah.
if you take that one step further, every one of us is a song. So we're trying to remember what our actual song is so that we can create that out of our life, right?
Don't die with your song still in you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
Just sing. Sing for yourself. Sing for your heart. Sing for your children. Sing because it's fun for you. Like you said, I just sing because I like it. And we make everything that it has to be something that we can commodify or like perform at some point. And it's like, just do it for fun. Like play with the tuning forks and just have fun. That I think is the ultimate way to introduce things into your life and to give yourself that sense of who you really are, which is really playful and is really free and is really joyful. And we see it in our kids. I mean, it's magical. They're so playful. They're so joyous. They're so free, just for no reason.
We're really lucky. And I think we feel really grateful for Tim and David for opening this up even a few decades ago. This was much harder conversation, much more courageous conversation to get out into the public. It was hard to even have a conversation about matter not being, just chemicals.
Right.
Right? Like that, just that shift has happened. They were before all that. And so we're at this time where we have everything at our disposal. I mean, it's up to us to just find the things that do make us feel better and make that choice. But we have to remind each other to not be in the stress and the fear. And I certainly need reminding all the time.
Me too. Me too. Especially now, we're in the chaos. You know what I mean? This is a very chaotic time. And so, conversations like this just raise my vibration. My immune system gets stronger and I become unfuckwithable.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. That's how I feel though, especially after a conversation like this with two high vibrational people.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And then to share with my listeners, such a beautiful tool to use. Tell everybody where they can find you guys, where they can listen to the sounds and they could purchase and how you sell them. What does that look like?
You can go to SomaEnergetics.com, and we also have our YouTube channel.
Everything is under the Soma Energetics handle. So YouTube is Soma Energetics, Facebook Soma Energetics, Instagram. But on our website is where you can check out the frequencies. There's videos that allow you to listen to the sound.
Yeah.
And that's also where you can purchase. So everything is online, and we have some amazing kits and things like that, bundles that allows people to kind of start and get a feel for some of the weighted and some of the unweighted and the crystal tuner. So check that out. That's an easy starting point.
And we're accessible. People can call us, anytime. We can talk.
We are the ones answering the phones and answering the emails. So.
Yeah, we are accessible. But they say, well, where should I start? And it's so depending on just, I think first, like Chyla was saying, like what feels fun, what feels like a fun starting point, what resonates, are you a yoga teacher that just wants something to replace the Palo Santo and the sage and do some clearing? Well, that's the crystal tuner. Are you like struggling with, like, the main thing is chronic stress in your shoulders? Well, maybe an Om tuner is a really good spot, or pain management. It can really help with pain and tension, or also just like, okay, I want something before I get on my next meeting through the middle of the day to strike this and put it on my heart. Take a deep breath. Okay, before I go into my next thing, well, that's an Om tuner. Or you can get, like I said, there's bundles where we have stuff packaged together. If you're a Reiki person, then the whole Solfeggio set.
I was gonna say the Solfeggio is like, especially because we talked about it. It's in its bag, but the rainbow. I will say these are my friends.
They're really pretty.
Solfeggio, for whatever reason, they became my friends, and I just love them.
Wow.
I'm very connected to them. I really enjoy working with them to reset my energy anytime I'm needing to. So I also love this as a starting point.
Yeah.
Hey, and you guys also train people in this modality.
Yes, yeah, we have. So we're calling them now our legacy trainings because they're actually with David and Tim. And I have our phase 1 that I mentioned, and that introduces you to the energy vitality technique, which we call EVT. That's to work with the Solfeggio energy tuners. And then you can go up from there, the phase 2, which teaches you how to work with the body tuners, an advanced technique where you get to scan the body and see where there's dissonance. To use that word
like
again.
I was saying with my big bowl, instead of putting your clients in danger.
Yes, exactly. And so then you can work specifically on the body to kind of work with that. And then phase 3 is with our DNA and our RNA tuning forks. And so that's like another layer. And so it all kind of builds on itself. But I wanted to say that we just did a training that we're going to be releasing soon, which is the EVT 2.0. And so this is kind of our master teacher has been working with the energy vitality technique with the energy tuners for about 2 decades almost. And this is kind of his intuition and some of the new ways that he's worked with it. It incorporates some of our newer forks, like the Earth Star fork that's becoming a little bit more popular.
Things are evolving. I like that. And I've been seeing that in my own work.
Yeah. And so thank you for bringing that up because it's one of our passions. And we feel one of the reasons Soma called us forward to work with her is because of what we want to build with having more education out there, more trainings, and also just bringing the community together. Also,
there's a certification element too. So if you want to actually become certified, there's a whole path for that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so
it's a great addition. Like if you're already doing, energy work. As soon as we get off, I'm going to go throw this out to my Reiki community.
It was so nice to meet you. You're awesome. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. And for having us. We're so
Yeah.
honored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Sense of Soul.